Thanks for watching. Although this sixth video in a series of 8 Easter reflections will end on a very uplifting note, I have to tell you that this Easter Good Friday AD 33 was the darkest day in human history. If we ever thought the human heart was basically gentle and kind and good, the events that Friday shatters all myths about basic human goodness. Beneath the very thin veneer of respectability and civility, there is a natural heart that is seething with hostility towards God. The momentum to silence the young 33-year-old man was accelerating. On Thursday evening and into the early hours of Friday morning, Jesus and his disciples quietly met in the Garden of Gethsemane, perhaps near the grove of olive trees near Jerusalem. And Jesus was deeply burdened. His prayers were intense as he thought of the awful storm that would rage around him within just a very few hours. But it was for this very reason he came down from heaven. He knew that his mission to save sinners would require his death for our sins. He knew all that would be involved. As he thought of bearing the load of sin, he was in agony as he prayed in Gethsemane. You know, it had just been on Tuesday that he prayed these words, recorded in John's Gospel, chapter 12 and verse 27. He prayed, "Now is my soul troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour, but for this purpose I have come to this hour." Suddenly, the armed enemies of Christ broke into the garden scene and they arrested Jesus. I can't go into all the details, but they did take Jesus to the high priest. He also had a mock trial with Governor Pilate presiding and also in consultation with King Herod. During these early hours of Friday morning, they brutally assaulted him. They covered his compassionate eyes, and then they struck him on the head and they said, "Prophesy who it was that just struck you." And they repeatedly spat in his face. They lashed his back. They punched him. They twisted into a circle, a branch of long thorns, and then they pounded it into his head. And they said, "Hail, King of the Jews." Ultimately, the angry mob prevailed. They roared, "Crucify him." And Governor Pilate surrendered to their will, and Jesus was crucified. It was from the cross that he cried for the 6th time. I suspect millions will reflect on the 6th cry of Christ with profound appreciation. Many would say their favorite Bible verse is John 19 and verse 30. You know, after all the physical assaults, the brutality of the executioners, all the mocking taunts of the observers, after the 3 dark hours, the darkest hours the earth has ever experienced, after all of that, Jesus had been suffering for our sins. And after he cried, "I thirst," and after all that, listen to his 6th cry. We are told it was a loud cry. Here it is, John's Gospel, chapter 19, verse 30. I'll just read the 3 words in the English language. It is finished. In the original language, it means paid in full. Jesus paid to God sin's penalty in full. He didn't make a partial payment and leave the rest to you. I'm so thankful his 6th cry didn't go like this. It is 75% finished, and each sinner must do the remaining 25% in order for my sacrifice for sin to bring God satisfaction. One of the greatest lies perpetrated by religion is a teaching that you can work your way to God. They say, yes, Jesus' death was amazing, but you must do your part. Friend, when Jesus cried, "It is finished," sin's debt was paid in full, and God was 100% satisfied that Good Friday afternoon. Provision for all to be saved was finished, completed. It wasn't a cry of defeat. It wasn't a mumbled cry. It was a loud, triumphant cry of success. This suffering for sin on the cross was exactly the reason he came down from heaven to earth. And it is exactly the reason why God gave his only begotten Son. Romans chapter 5, verse 8 says, "But God proves his own love for us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Christ left nothing unfinished when he hung on the cross. He meant it when he said it. It is finished. John 19, verse 30. I hope you will appreciate the sixth cry from the cross and rest on Christ for salvation and rejoice in having your own sins forgiven this Easter. Thank you very, very much for watching.